At a good restaurant, they'll always bring you something on the house, bread, focaccia, doesn't really matter what exactly. What matters is that a place that counts every gram and knows the cost of every little sprig of dill is giving away food just like that, and to every single guest at that. You have to admit, that's a pretty terrible business model. Assuming, of course, that the bread is about the food and that the limoncello they brought you on the house is about the limoncello. So how does it actually work? Let's break it down.
Ben, look, free focaccia. Free? You just agreed to stay. Well, the bread is free. The bread's free. The bread's free. The appetite isn't.
So there you are, sitting down at the table, and right away they treat you to a warm appetizer, focaccia for example, if it's an Italian place. And this is where you start feeling comfortable. And where are you going to go now? You'll have to order, because this is where a basic reflex kicks in, reciprocity, meaning you'll order actual dishes, not just a coffee. And the second thing, have you noticed that they bring you the drinks menu first, before you've even opened the food one? After a glass of wine, you get more agreeable, and you say yes to an appetizer more easily. And this isn't guesswork. In a study from the Indiana University School of Medicine in 2015, in the journal Obesity, participants under the mild influence of alcohol ate noticeably more than the sober control group. The limoncello works exactly the same way. It might even be non-alcoholic, but we all know that sour lemon gets the appetite going nicely, and that's how the restaurant knows your check is going to come out higher than you planned. And have you also noticed that when a waiter carries a steaming dish past you from another table, you suddenly want that? One waiter admitted it straight out on Reddit, "If a table is only drinking, I'll definitely walk past them with the most appetizing appetizers." And at chains like Chili's, some dishes are required by standard to sizzle loudly on the plate, because that sound works like an ad for the entire room. Understand one thing, the restaurant's job is to raise the average check, and these little tricks are exactly what does it. Okay, fine, enough about the dishes, but how do the lighting and the music, or the tableware for that matter, affect your check? Personally, I'm the kind of person who sizes up how comfortable a place is before I order anything. Plenty of times I walked in, sat there for 5 minutes, and walked right back out, because atmosphere has a direct effect on your mood. The classic study here, Milliman, Journal of Consumer Research, 1986, showed that slow music keeps guests at the table longer and pushes beverage revenue up by around 40%. And in an experiment at the University of Leicester, a restaurant spent 18 evenings alternating between classical, pop, and silence. With classical playing, guests consistently spent more, and what they paid extra for was the optional stuff: starters, desserts, coffee. Can you imagine? Classical music is basically whispering to you, "You're in an expensive place. Act accordingly." And if the music plays faster, then your brain speeds up too. Warm, dimmed lighting helps you relax. You lose track of time. You're more willing to grab another glass. Bright, cold light is telling you to eat faster and leave. And here's my favorite fact. Charles Spence, professor of experimental psychology at Oxford, showed in 2013 in the journal Flavor that the same food on a heavier plate and with heavier cutlery is perceived as more expensive. So the exact same pasta starts being perceived as more expensive, and the restaurant can raise the price by a few dollars without changing a single thing in the recipe. Weight in your hand is something the brain reads as quality. You'd think it all adds up, make the guest comfortable, they'll stay and spend more money. But let's look at it through a different lens. Have you ever noticed that in fast food places like McDonald's, the seats are hard, the light is bright, the music is faster, or there isn't any at all? It's not because they cut corners on the furniture. It's because fast food doesn't make money on how much you ordered. It makes money on how many people pass through that table in a day. A high-check restaurant needs the table occupied for a long time. Fast food needs it to free up fast. Generally speaking, a restaurant menu is also called a sales map, where every element sits exactly where it sits for a reason. In the industry, there's literally a term for it: Menu engineering. For example, an item pulled out into its own little box with air around it will pull your eye toward it all by itself. Restaurant consultant Aaron Allen says, in a densely laid out menu, the eye reaches for the empty spaces on its own. That's why the item they put in that lonely little box isn't the tastiest one. It's the one that brings in the most money. By the way, that popular myth that your eye lands on the top right corner first was debunked by eye tracking a long time ago. People raid menus top to bottom, so what actually works is the isolation and the box, not some magic corner. You've probably never stopped to think that a menu almost always has an anchor dish with a sky-high price that hardly anyone ever orders. Its job isn't to sell, its job is to make everything else look reasonable next to it. Right beside it they'll put a mid-priced, high-margin item, and that's the one you end up choosing, feeling like you're being sensible with money. It's that same decoy effect that works with popcorn at the movies and with phone plans.
I'll take the aged 28-day steak. Would you, if it just said steak? No. It's the same steak, Nick.
Prices are numbers, and it seems to us that no matter how you write them down, they're all still the same anyway, but that's not quite true. I was personally surprised by a Cornell University study from 2009, which showed that guests given a menu without a currency symbol spent noticeably more than the ones who had a dollar sign sitting next to the price. And it's all because the currency symbol works as a reminder that you're spending right now, and your brain tries to stop you. And another thing, our brain is lazy and latches onto the first digit. $14.95 gets read as around 14 when it's actually almost 15. That's why cheaper places write $8.99. It looks like 8 and some change, while expensive ones do the opposite and put around 15 with no cents. A clean price sounds confident. And did you know that in any restaurant, drinks have the biggest margin? Do the math yourself. A tea bag, a slice of lemon, boiling water. The actual cost is pennies, and the markup runs several times that, sometimes dozens of times over. Now let's take a look at all of this through the restaurant's eyes, because behind the facade of a cozy evening, there's a business running on a very thin margin. The cost of the food itself is roughly 28 to 38% of the menu price. That sounds like a big income, but after paying rent, wages and write-offs, what's often left is a net 3 to 5%. Food barely brings in any profit, so where's the money? It's in the drinks. Alcohol margins, for instance, are 70 to 80%. The syrup for a fountain soda costs 5 to 15 cents, and on your check that's $3 to $4. The markup on wine over the retail price is usually 200 to 400%. The logic seems obvious. Pasta is cheap to make, so it's profitable. Steak is expensive, so it isn't. But go ahead, pull out a calculator and do the math. Pasta for $10 cost a quarter of that. The restaurant is left with $7.50. Steak for $28, with a bad cost of 38%, leaves $17. So even if the percentage is lower, the steak actually brings in more money. But remember, both the $7.50 and the $17 are still before rent, wages, and write-offs. Now you understand why the bread is free. Carbs cost almost nothing, but they switch on reciprocity and kick off the drink order, which is where all the profit lives. And to make you more generous, the drinks usually come out first, since that's where the margin is best. And what about dessert? Well, they offer it with the words, or just another glass of wine. And now you understand exactly why it's phrased that way. Mark Bucker, owner of the restaurant Medium Rare in Washington, told the Washington Post straight out, "A cocktail brings in twice as much money as a dessert, and it doesn't tie up the table at the end of the evening." And finally, the limoncello. It costs the place pennies, but in exchange it buys 3 things. Reciprocity, so you leave a bigger tip. A warm memory, so you come back. And an extra 10 minutes at the table. What if you order something else? The limoncello is, in fact, the best advertising a restaurant has. Your restaurant's goal isn't to fool you, it's to make money, because making money means rent, taxes, wages, and most importantly, the ability to open its doors again tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this one, hit like and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next.